Hi everybody, and welcome to another Ozcode interview where we talk about everything related to debugging. Today I'm talking to Ozcode co-founder and CTO Omer Raviv. Hi Omer.
Hi Rami.
It's great to have you here, and today I'd like to find out how and why you got so passionate about debugging. How did all this start?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I guess it all started for me about 10 years ago. I was working as a junior developer in the field of medical imaging. So I was actually working on the software that the doctors and the technicians at the hospital all use to operate a CT scanner. And I guess the big moment for me was when they took us out to the hospital. They used to do this, every 6 months or so, and had us actually sit in the X-ray room where the technicians were using a beta piece of our software on actual humans to operate the CT scanner again. And that's when it sort of hit me that, I was sort of shaking there in my seat, staring at the computer screen and thinking to myself, I really, really hope that I did a good job when I was debugging all of that code, and they won't have to, scan the person twice just because I made some silly programming mistake. And that's where I decided, I'm going to dedicate myself to making debuggers better.
Wow, that sounds pretty scary. Watching your software run on a CT scanner on real humans. So was that what got you started with the Ozcode?
Yeah, what happened after that is that I had a bunch of ideas starting to build up in my head about how can we make debuggers work harder to appease humans rather than humans working so hard to get the information they actually need out of debuggers. And eventually that culminated in me just going up to my boss one day and telling him, well, that's it. I quit. I'm going to do my own thing and try and start my own startup and try to disrupt the way developers approach debugging.
Sounds awesome. So if you love debugging so much, you have this passion, tell me, what was the most difficult or interesting type of bug you ever had to deal with?
Oh, that's another great question. I would say the most interesting types of bugs to me are what we call Heisenberg bugs. And that's named after Heisenberg, and not the TV show Breaking Bad Heisenberg, but the German physicist Werner Heisenberg, who talked about the notion of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which happens to be quite prevalent in computer software, where the act of observing something, like attaching a debugger to an app, actually changes the way it behaves. And that's really, really difficult when you have a bug where just trying to add even an attached debugger or just adding some logs to it, suddenly the bug doesn't reproduce anymore, and then you're kind of stuck. You have to be really creative in how you approach debugging those types of problems. Non-determinism in computer software is extremely difficult to understand sometimes.
Yeah, those sound like pretty difficult bugs to solve. So to finish off, here's a big one. How do you see debugging developing over the next 5 years?
That's a really interesting question, particularly because, in my view, debugging hasn't changed so much in the past 30 years, right? We're still essentially just putting in breakpoints, stepping through code very meticulously. But I do think that the next 5 years will bring some very dramatic changes. First, I think we'll see debugging containers and microservices and serverless functions, and in general, cloud-native code make a big shift. We'll have practical tools to debug cloud-based technology. We'll switch over from using breakpoints to non-breaking breakpoints. We'll be able to debug across microservices as one service calls to another. Things that we can't do today and simply are too difficult to do in the cloud native world. And secondly, I think we'll see a big switch towards collaborative debugging. Today, the only way we can do collaborative debugging is if you come over and actually sit next to me on the same laptop screen, or at least we do a screen sharing session. We can't productively work together in the same way that we do pull requests on GitHub, because there's no way to share that context. And I think that will change. I think we'll see web-based collaborative debugging sessions, like Ozcode's production debuggers, a collaboration mechanism, where you might be working in a completely different country, in a completely different time zone, and we're still able to productively access the same time travel recording of a program's execution and work together as a team to figure out, what was the root cause of this bug and how do we go about fixing it.
Cloud native debugging and collaborative debugging. That sounds great. I guess that wraps it up for today. Thanks for joining us here at Ozcode.